The wooden house felt different after the kiss. Not bigger, not brighter, just warmer, as if the walls themselves had learned how to breathe easier. Tieu Lac stood by the window the next morning, watching the bamboo groves sway gently under a pale sky. The footprint in the scrap of dark fabric still lingered in her mind like a distant shadow, but Quan's presence made the fear feel smaller, more manageable. Quan moved quietly behind her in the kitchen, the soft clink of bowls and the scent of ginger tea filling the air. He had slept on the couch again, refusing the bed even after she offered. "I like being closer to the door," he had said with that quiet smile of his, the one that always made her heart stumble. When he handed her the steaming cup, their fingers brushed. The spark from yesterday was still there, softer now, but deeper. "You're thinking about it again," he said gently, not as a question. Tieu Lac nodded, sipping the tea. The warmth spread through her chest. "It's hard not to. This place has always been my safe corner of the world. Now it feels watched." Quan set his cup down and stepped closer. He didn't pull her into his arms immediately. Instead, he simply stood there, giving her space to choose. She chose him. Leaning forward, she rested her forehead against his chest. His heartbeat was steady, strong, an anchor in the quiet morning. "I want to tell you something," she whispered. "Why I really came here." Quan's hand came up to stroke her hair, slow and careful, as if she were made of the same delicate vines in the garden. "Only if you want to." They moved to the old wooden sofa. Tieu Lac curled her legs beneath her, and Quan sat close enough that their knees touched. The words came slowly at first, then in a gentle rush. "I wasn't always alone like this. In the city, I had a life, a job at a small publishing house, friends, and someone. His name was Min. We were together for 3 years. I thought we were building something real, but he changed. The longer we were together, the more he wanted to shape me. My clothes, my opinions, even the way I spoke. When I tried to pull away, he made me feel like I was the broken one. The night I finally left, he told me no one would ever want someone who ran away to hide in the forest." Her voice cracked on the last words. Quan's jaw tightened, but his touch remained impossibly gentle as he took her hand. "I came back to this house, my grandmother's old place, because I needed silence. I needed to prove to myself that I could be enough on my own. The gourds, the bamboo, the quiet, they didn't judge me. But after a while, the silence started to feel too loud, like emptiness wearing a peaceful mask." Quan listened without interrupting, his thumb tracing slow circles on the back of her hand, the way he always did when he wanted to soothe her. When she finished, he lifted her hand and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. "Thank you for trusting me with that," he murmured. "You're not broken, Tieu Lac. You're brave, and you're not empty anymore." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "What about you? A busy CEO who could be anywhere. Why do you stay here so easily? With me?" Quan exhaled a quiet laugh, but there was weight behind it. He leaned back against the sofa, pulling her with him until she rested against his side. "Because the city stopped feeling like home a long time ago. Board meetings, endless calls, chasing numbers. It all started to feel like noise. I was successful, but I was exhausted. The first time I drove up here for that emergency meeting about the land, I told myself it would be one night. Then I met you. You were standing in the rain with that injured ankle, refusing help but still trying to be strong. Something in me shifted. For the first time in years, I didn't want to rush back to schedules and deals. I wanted to stay where time moved slower, where someone looked at me like I was just Quan, not Mr. CEO. He turned his head, resting his cheek against her hair. "You make me remember there's more to life than winning. You make me want to learn how to tie gourd vines properly, how to harvest bamboo shoots without rushing, how to just be." Tieu Lac's heart swelled until it hurt in the sweetest way. She tilted her face up and kissed him. Not tentative this time, but slow and full of the gratitude she couldn't quite put into words. Quan responded with the same quiet intensity, one hand cupping her cheek as if she were the most precious thing he had ever held. They spent the morning pretending the world outside was ordinary. Quan helped her with light chores, folding laundry, sweeping the wooden floor, checking the vegetable beds. Every small task became an excuse to be close. His hand on her waist when she reached for something high, her laughter when he accidentally knocked over a basket of herbs. By midday, the sun had broken through the clouds, warm and golden. Tieu Lac suggested they walk to the nearby village, only a 20-minute gentle path through the edge of the bamboo. "The children there always make me smile," she said, "and I think we both need a little normal today." Quan agreed immediately. He insisted on carrying the small basket of fresh vegetables they had picked, and he kept his pace slow to match her still healing ankle. The village was small and lively, a cluster of wooden houses with thatched roofs nestled between coffee fields and bamboo. As soon as they arrived, a group of children spotted them. 3 boys and 2 girls, ages around 6 to 10, ran over with bare feet and bright eyes. "Ly Tu Tieu," they shouted, surrounding her with giggles. One little girl tugged at her hand. "Who is the tall uncle?" Quan crouched down to their level, his usual serious CEO expression softening into something boyish and warm. "I'm Quan. I'm helping Ly Tu Tieu with the garden. Do you want to show me how you play?" The children didn't need to be asked twice. They pulled both of them into their games. A simple version of Ja Cow with a handmade shuttlecock made of feathers and rubber bands. Then a noisy round of Bat Con Ka, where they pretended to catch fish in an imaginary river. Quan, tall and strong, let the kids climb on his back and ride the elephant. His deep laughter mixed with their high-pitched squeals, and Tieu Lac stood watching, her chest tight with an emotion she hadn't felt in years. Pure, uncomplicated joy. One boy offered Quan a small bamboo flute he had carved himself. Quan tried to play it, producing only funny squeaking sounds that sent the children into fits of laughter. Tieu Lac joined in, her own laugh light and free. For a while, the shadow of the footprint faded completely. There was only sunlight on red earth, the smell of coffee blossoms, and the sound of happy children. When it was time to leave, the kids waved goodbye with sticky hands and promises to visit the gourd garden soon. Quan took Tieu Lac's hand as they walked back, swinging it gently between them like teenagers. "You're good with them," she said softly. "I surprised myself," he admitted, smiling. "I never thought I'd enjoy being climbed on like a tree. But seeing you laugh like that, it was worth every squeaky note on that flute." Back at the house, they prepared a simple dinner together. Stir-fried bamboo shoots with garlic and fresh herbs from the garden, steamed rice, and a small plate of pickled vegetables. They ate on the porch as the sky turned soft orange, then lavender. After dinner, Quan checked the doors and windows with his usual quiet thoroughness. Tieu Lac noticed but said nothing. The mysterious signs in the forest still existed, but tonight they felt far away. They sat on the sofa again, the oil lamp casting a golden glow. Tieu Lac rested her head on Quan's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her closer until she was half curled against his chest. "Today felt like healing," she whispered, "like the forest is starting to feel full again." Quan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "It is full. You're here. I'm here. And whatever comes next, we face it together." His voice was low, steady, filled with a promise that wrapped around her heart like warm sunlight. Tieu Lac closed her eyes, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the distant rustle of bamboo in the night wind. For the first time in a very long time, the silence around them didn't feel empty. It felt like home. The next 2 days passed like a gentle dream woven between reality and wishful thinking. Tieu Lac and Quan moved through the hours with a new quiet rhythm, one that felt both fragile and deeply comforting. They continued pretending the outside world held no shadows. In the mornings they tended the garden together, Quan's large hands now more confident with the twine as he fixed the last sagging sections of the gourd trellis, under her soft guidance. Their fingers would brush often, each touch lingering a second longer than necessary, sending small ripples of warmth through both of them. Tieu Lac found herself smiling more easily. The weight she had carried for years, the fear of being too much or not enough, seemed to lighten every time Quan looked at her with those dark, steady eyes. He never pushed. He simply stayed, offering his presence like a quiet promise. On the third afternoon, the sky suddenly darkened with thick clouds rolling in from the mountains. The air grew heavy with the promise of rain. Tieu Lac stood on the porch, breathing in the earthy scent that always preceded a downpour in the bamboo grove. "Rain's coming," she said, a small smile playing on her lips. "Heavy one, I think." Quan stepped behind her, his arms sliding around her waist from behind. He rested his chin lightly on her shoulder. "Then we should make the most of it." Before she could ask what he meant, he took her hand and led her down the porch steps toward the garden. The first fat drops began to fall just as they reached the open space near the gourd trellis. Within seconds, the rain intensified, pouring down in warm, silver sheets. Tieu Lac laughed, a bright surprise sound, as the water soaked through her thin cotton shirt. "Quan, we're going to get drenched." "That's the point," he replied, his own laughter low and joyful. He pulled her closer, spinning her once under the rain like they were dancing in some private world. Water streamed down his face, plastering his white shirt to his chest and making his dark hair cling to his forehead. He looked younger, freer than she had ever seen the city CEO. They ran through the garden like children, splashing in the muddy puddles that formed quickly on the soft earth. Quan caught her around the waist when she slipped, lifting her slightly so her feet barely touched the ground. Their faces were inches apart, raindrops clinging to their lashes. "You're beautiful when you laugh," he murmured, voice husky from the downpour. Tieu Lac's heart fluttered wildly. She reached up, brushing wet strands of hair from his eyes. "And you're ridiculous when you're soaked." He grinned and kissed her then, deep, unhurried, tasting of rain and pure affection. The world narrowed to the warm press of his mouth, the steady strength of his arms holding her steady while the rain washed everything else away. When they pulled apart, both breathing harder, Quan rested his forehead against hers. "I don't want to pretend anymore," he said softly. "These days with you, they've shown me what I've been missing. Not just peace, you." Tieu Lac's throat tightened with emotion. Before she could respond, distant laughter cut through the sound of the rain. A group of 5 village children, the same ones they had played with days earlier, came running along the path, squealing with delight as they too embraced the sudden shower. They spotted Tieu Lac and Quan and waved excitedly. "Ly Tu Tieu, Uncle Quan, come play." Quan glanced at Tieu Lac, eyebrows raised in silent question. She nodded, smiling brightly. Hand in hand, they joined the children in the open clearing near the edge of the bamboo. The rain continued pouring, but no one cared. They played a chaotic game of tag, slipping and sliding in the mud, their laughter mixing with the steady drum of raindrops on leaves. Quan let the smaller kids tackle him to the wet ground, pretending to be defeated with dramatic groans that sent the children into fits of giggles. Tieu Lac watched him, her chest swelling with a tenderness so strong it almost hurt. This powerful man who once commanded boardrooms was now rolling in the mud with village children just to hear them laugh, all because it made her happy. One little girl tugged at Tieu Lac's hand. "Uncle Quan likes you a lot, right? He looks at you like my papa looks at mama." Tieu Lac blushed deeply, but she couldn't deny the truth in the child's innocent words. She glanced at Quan, who was now carrying 2 boys on his back while pretending to be a water buffalo. Their eyes met through the curtain of rain, and something wordless passed between them, deep, certain, and full of promise. As the rain began to ease into a softer drizzle, the children finally waved goodbye and ran back toward the village, their clothes muddy and their faces glowing with joy. Quan and Tieu Lac stood alone again in the garden, soaked to the skin, breathing in the fresh, clean scent of wet earth and bamboo. Quan turned to her, his expression shifting from playful to something far more serious and tender. He reached into the pocket of his wet trousers and pulled out a small velvet box. Tieu Lac's breath caught. She recognized it immediately. The ring she had gently returned to him weeks earlier when he had first tried to offer it too soon, too fast for her guarded heart. "Quan," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the dripping leaves. He took her left hand in both of his, the rain still falling lightly around them like a blessing. His thumbs traced those familiar soothing circles on her skin, but this time his hands trembled slightly with emotion. "Tieu Lac," he began, voice low and rough with feeling. "I know we haven't had much time. I know there are still shadows in the forest and questions we don't have answers to. But these days with you, fixing the trellis, harvesting shoots, playing with the children, dancing in the rain, have been the clearest moments of my life. You've shown me what it means to truly live, not just succeed. You've healed parts of me I didn't even know were broken." He opened the box, revealing the simple yet elegant ring. A delicate band with a small, sparkling diamond that caught the diffused light filtering through the clouds. "I'm not asking you to leave this forest or change who you are. I'm asking if you'll let me stay here with you, to build a life together. Slow mornings, shared silences, loud laughter with village kids, and whatever storms may come. Tieu Lac, will you marry me?" Tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. Her heart felt too full, overflowing with love, fear, and an overwhelming sense of rightness. She looked at the man standing before her. Strong, patient, willing to trade his fast-paced world for the quiet rhythm of bamboo and gourd vines, and knew her answer without hesitation. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, laughing through happy tears. "Yes, Quan, I will marry you." Quan's face broke into the brightest, most genuine smile she had ever seen. He slipped the ring onto her finger with steady hands, then pulled her into his arms, lifting her off the ground as he spun her once more under the gentle rain. Their lips met in a kiss that tasted of rainwater, joy, and the beginning of forever. When he set her down, he cupped her face with both hands, thumbs wiping away her tears. "You've made me the happiest man alive," he murmured against her lips. "Thank you for trusting me with your heart." They walked back to the house slowly, hands intertwined, the ring now a warm, sparkling weight on her finger. Inside, they dried off and changed into comfortable clothes. Quan prepared a simple hot soup while Tieu Lac lit the oil lamps. They ate close together on the sofa, shoulders touching, stealing soft kisses between bites. Later that evening, as Tieu Lac lay curled against Quan's chest on the bed, he had finally agreed to share it, holding her protectively. His phone vibrated quietly on the bedside table. He glanced at the screen. A message from his assistant. Quan read it silently, his arm tightening slightly around her. The report was reassuring on the surface. The footprint likely belonged to a local hunter or curious villager who had wandered too close while searching for wild herbs. No immediate threat detected, no connection to any competitors or land disputes so far, but the assistant added one careful line. "Still, something feels off. I'll keep digging discreetly." Quan deleted the notification and set the phone aside. He pulled Tieu Lac closer, pressing a lingering kiss to her forehead. She stirred sleepily, nestling deeper into his embrace. "Everything okay?" "Everything is perfect," he whispered, his voice warm and steady. He stroked her hair with infinite tenderness, listening to her breathing gradually slow into the peaceful rhythm of sleep. Outside, the bamboo grove whispered softly under the last drizzles of rain. The ring on Tieu Lac's finger caught a faint gleam of moonlight streaming through the window. Quan held her tighter, his heart full yet quietly vigilant. The shadows in the forest might still linger, but for tonight, and for as many nights as she needed, he would be her safe place. "Du ko chu yen gi," he murmured against her hair, echoing the promise in his heart. Angkung Seojai, always. In her dreams, Tieu Lac walked through the bamboo hand in hand with Quan, the grove no longer empty but filled with laughter, love, and the bright future they had just begun to build together under the healing rain. The fragile peace continued, sweeter and stronger than before.